Everyone, welcome to part 2 of my Devlog series. Today I will go over updates that were added this week, and I will also go into more details about the drones in the game and changes that will be made. I've also made a few major changes to how the inventory system will work, and I will cover that in close to the end of the video. On Tuesday I experimented with basic terrain deformation. I thought it would look cool if any place that in which mining took place or any digging, that the terrain would deform in that area. I first tried the most basic implementation I could think of, and in this implementation I just directly set the vertice of the mesh to deform the mesh, and after about 2 hours of messing around with this, I got somewhat of the desired effect and thought, man, this might be feasible. The simple terrain deformation I implemented is currently unusable for the game that I'm working on. If you look at a game like Gold Rush, the game in which there are specified areas in which you dig and the terrain can deform, in a situation like that it could be used. Also, if you made a game in which you dig small holes in specified spots and not the whole terrain, and not deform the whole terrain, this current system would work. For my current project though, it's not really something I see myself using. I then immediately stopped working on terrain deformation and gave procedural generation a try. I watched a tutorial series by a YouTuber named Sebastian. The series name is called Procedural Landmass. I spent most of Tuesday watching his tutorials. After this, I spent most of Wednesday running errands around the house. So on that day I didn't get much work done. Thursday I continued watching the procedural landmass tutorial and I got a basic version working. I also at this point realized really how much work would have to go into getting a system like this up and running. At this point I realized that I won't have as much control over my world building as I would like. From the beginning I was already leaning more towards building a handmade map or a handmade world, and this just pushed me more into that. My mind is mostly made up, but I want to give it another go. I don't know, maybe it's just the part of me that loves problem solving that really wants to get this working more than anything else. I also modeled a couple of drones on Thursday. I am not a very artistic person, so when I model I need reference images open. I'll show them on screen, and I will also show a time lapse of the couple of the 2 drones that I created. In the models on screen, I model out the basic shape of the drone. I then use primitive shapes as placeholder for things like guns and attachments, things I don't really want to model at this moment. I just want to focus on modeling drones and then attachments and all that at a later stage. After having followed tutorials for most of the week, on Friday I was really itching to do some coding of my own. Since in the game you'll be hacking drones, I called the defense systems of the drones a firewall shield. The system was implemented already. I just wanted a way to give the player visual feedback of the defense level of the drone. So I just reused my health system display and turned it into a firewall shield display. On screen right now is a drone that's being targeted, and when the firewall of the drone has been broken or goes down to a certain point, the drone goes into a state in which the drone can be hacked. The firewall will start regenerating at a slow pace once it's been broken, and when it gets to a certain point, that drone will come out of the hackable state, or the state in which it can be hacked. I also wanted a way of showing any ammo count on screen, so I implemented an ammo display system for the guns. Almost every object in this game uses scriptable objects. To any developers watching, I do not use a prefab system for saving items or items information. I only use prefabs to save game objects and then have scriptable objects reference these game objects. From here I wanted a way in which resources could be highlighted and also show through other game objects like an X-ray system. The system will be refined in future to show to highlight only specified resources. Right now, the basic system that I implemented highlights all resources close to the player. On Saturday, I went for a long walk, and on the walk, I watched someone cutting grass. The person cutting the grass was on a small tractor with a grass cutting attachment. As I watched him or her, I had an idea and I ran with it. So this week I will be implementing a system in which any resources carried by drones will be visible somewhere on the drone. Like a lot of castle building games and colony management games, any resources gathered are mostly visually stored somewhere in a stockpile system of sorts. So my idea right now is that beginner level drones will be able to carry the first tier of resources, and also only a few at a time. I also want the resources any drone is carrying to be clearly visible on the drone. So as the player advances and more advanced drones are captured, they will be able to carry a larger resources and also larger quantities of resources. Also in tier 2, liquid resources will be introduced. Tier 3 will introduce gases, and more than likely tier 3 won't have resources that are gathered in the world. You will mostly need to refine object resources further and combine 2 or more tier 2 and tier 3 resources. I also thought of a way to introduce a system in which mid and high-end drones could passively produce resources of a certain kind. Say for example, a drone that harvests resources could produce another resource as it works. I'm imagining this drone produces this resource as a waste product. I always liked having more than one way to obtain a resource in a game. I will use Astroneer again here as an example, although this can also be seen in a game like Ark Survival Evolved. In that game, there are also more than one way to obtain resources. I would also like to add a system that has drones that consume fuel for boosted performance. I want to add this in a way that it's optional. The drones will perform optimally at all times, and when this fuel system is introduced to them, they will just perform faster than they normally would. I want to implement the system in a way that if the player does not feed fuel to the drones, they won't be penalized for that. Because of the way my current inventory system is so deeply rooted in my current game code, I will implement this new inventory system on top of the one that I currently have. I will then phase out my current inventory system over time. I doubt implementing a basic working version of this system will take me long, so I'm hoping that by my next devlog next week, I will be able to show a basic version of this. I like the thought of having things visual, so I'll be implementing a way to visually show the drone health, battery and shield on the drone. This won't be implemented in a per drone basis. I'll basically just take a cylinder or cube, place it somewhere on the drone and have it scale according to the drone's stats like shield or health. I won't be modeling this onto each drone separately, as doing this in this way will add too much to the game scale. I'm also hoping to have a sandbox demo out by the end of February for anyone that's curious to just play around with the systems.